The music world is numb today, stunned by the violent death of gangster rapper Notorious B.I.G. The tragedy happened here outside of the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles.
Do you remember that moment, the final ride through Brooklyn, when the world watched Biggie leave his city for the last time? Well, now, something has surfaced that shakes that memory to its core. New, never-before-seen footage from inside. The funeral home is rewriting everything we thought we knew. But that camera caught wasn't a farewell. It was a secret. A hidden moment that might crack open what really went down in those final, shadowy hours. A secret in the casket. The video is short, barely 10 seconds. Grainy, low-lit. Almost like it was never meant to be seen. But it's him, Christopher Wallace. Laid out in a casket, and not just any casket, an enormous triple-wide one custom-built for his size. Nearly 400 pounds at the time of his death. In the clip, he's dressed in a crisp white tuxedo, topped with a white hat exactly the way his family requested. Footage like this should not exist. The world was told his story ended with cremation, body turned to ash, case closed. But this clip says otherwise. It shows a private viewing, something hidden from the public. Proof that before the flame, a select few saw him one last time. So who held that camera? And why risk filming something forbidden? To understand why this footage is explosive, you have to understand the man in that casket, and the world that wanted him gone. Christopher George Latour Wallace, Brooklyn's own heavyweight. Born May 21, 1972, only child to Valletta Wallace. His father, a Jamaican politician, walked out when Biggie was just 2, so it was mother and son, alone. Surviving in a modest apartment at 226 St. James Place in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Valletta taught preschool, strict, loving, determined to shield her boy. She'll put him in a good school, and smart, sharp, sometimes too slick with his mouth. But beyond their front door, the 1980s crack era was exploding. The streets became another classroom. Hustlers, fast money, temptation everywhere. And Biggie wanted in. By his teens, he was living double. Honor student by day, drug dealer by night. The streets had him. At 17, he made the choice that broke his mother's heart. He dropped out. Full-time hustler, but he carried one gift the streets couldn't steal. He could rap. Corner battles, story-filled rhymes, say smooth, heavyweight flow. What started as fun was becoming something bigger. He wasn't just rapping, he was documenting survival. Every verse was a diary of struggle, hunger, ambition, and the people around him. They could feel it. One of his boys, Dom and Dr. O.C. Butler, looked him in the eyes and said, "Bro, the world needs to hear you." So they made a demo tape, nothing fancy. No studio, no budget, just talent and truth, on cassette. But that little tape, it changed hip-hop. It landed in the hands of DJ Mr. C, Big Daddy Kane's right-hand man. One listen was enough. He passed it to Matty C at The Source, the most powerful hip-hop magazine of the 90s. They put him in the unsigned hype column, the holy grail for unknown rappers. And that's where a young A&R named Sean Puffy Combs saw the name Christopher. While his Puffy had to find him, he tracked Biggie down and brought him to Sylvia's in Harlem, legendary soul food spot. Puffy later said the first thing he noticed was Biggie's size and presence. This wasn't the era of pretty boy rappers. Biggie was raw, dark, heavy, and the crazy part? He was so nervous, he wouldn't even eat. His dream was sitting right across the table, and he could barely breathe. Puffy signed him to Uptown Records on the spot, and everything nearly collapsed. Puffy got fired. Biggie's future was seconds from disappearing just like that, but Puffy didn't fold. He built Bad Boy Records from scratch, and guess who the very first artist was? Christopher Wallace, the Notorious B.I.G. in 1994. Biggie dropped Ready to Die, a masterpiece. A biography in music form, dark street tales mixed with radio anthems like Juicy and Big Papa. Nobody had ever blended pain and mainstream success like that before. Biggie didn't just drop an album, he shifted hip-hop's center of gravity. New York was back, and Biggie, he was crowned king of the East Coast. At just 21 years old. Meanwhile, out in the West, there was Tupac Shakur, global icon, actor, poet, and at first, he and Biggie were friends. Real friends. Brothers in talent. But November 1994 changed everything. Tupac was ambushed and shot inside Quad Studios, New York. 5 bullets. He lived, but he left with a belief that haunted the world. Tupac thought Biggie and Puffy knew something. Or worse, trust turned into suspicion. Suspicion turned into rage. And while Pac sat in prison, that anger boiled until it overflowed. Suge Knight bailed Haim out, and Tupac didn't return as the same man. He came out ready for war, then hit him. Up dropped the most vicious diss track in rap history. Threats, insults, and the nuclear bomb line claiming he slept with Biggie's wife, Faith Evans. The East Coast versus West Coast rivalry officially became a battlefield in September 1996. The first casualty fell, Tupac Shakur gunned down in Las Vegas. And just like that, suspicion turned toward one man, Biggie. 6 months later, Christopher Wallace boarded a plane flying straight into a city full of grief, anger, and revenge. He was walking straight into enemy territory. He touched down in Los Angeles early 1997, the city. Tupac died in just 6 months earlier. Biggie was there to push his second project, Life After Death, a bold double album meant to elevate him from star to legend. He was shooting the Hypnotize music video, doing press, shaking hands. But privately, he told people something deeper. He wanted peace. He said the war was over, the killing had to stop. He was a father now, a man who'd survived a near-fatal car crash. He walked with a cane, and his entire perspective had shifted. But Los Angeles wasn't ready for forgiveness. March 7th, 1997. Soul Train Music Awards. Biggie stepped on stage to present Toni Braxton her award, and the room turned cold. Cheers fought against loud, sharp boos. A public rejection, a warning, a reminder, this was not Brooklyn. The next night, March 8th, he was supposed to fly to Europe for tour dates, but at the last moment, plans changed. No flight, no escape. Biggie felt restless in the hotel. Someone suggested an after-party Vibe magazine and Quest Records. Peterson Automotive Museum, Miracle Mile. He agreed. Maybe he shouldn't have. For hours, the vibe was smooth. Music, loud, celebrities everywhere, drinks flowing. But after midnight, the fire marshal arrived. Too many people. Party over. Biggie and the bad boy crew walked out into the cool LA night. 3 cars deep. Puffy leading the convoy, Biggie right behind him in a green GMC Suburban, front passenger seat. Driver Gregory G. Money Young behind the wheel, Lil Cease in the back. 12:45 a.m. they hit a red light, Wilshire and Fairfax, only yards from the museum. Crowds of people all around them, heading home, laughing, yelling, unaware. History was seconds away. Then the moment froze. A dark-colored 1994 Chevy Impala SS rolled up beside them, smooth, deliberate, like it had been, waiting. Not speeding, not sliding past. It stopped. Right next to Biggie's door, Lil Cease saw the driver clearly. Black man, light blue suit, bow tie. A detail burned into memory forever. The man turned his head, eyes locking with Biggie for one chilling second. Then the pistol came out. Pop. 6 shots tore into the Suburban. 4 bullets found Biggie's chest. Screams. Chaos. People running. The Impala vanished into the night like a ghost. Puffy heard the shots from the front car. He jumped out, sprinting back, shouting Biggie's name inside the Suburban. His friend was slumped forward, bleeding, fading fast. No waiting for an ambulance. No time. They sped toward Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, fast as the heavy truck could move. Witnesses remember the panic, the yelling, the urgency. Biggie was nearly 400 pounds. It took 6 people to lift his body onto a gurney. Doctors opened his chest immediately, an emergency thoracotomy, cutting him open to track the bullets. Clamp the arteries, fight for his life. They were racing death itself. And somewhere across the city, his estranged wife Faith Evans got the call. Everything was about to change. Faith Evans was staying at a nearby hotel when the phone rang. She raced through the halls of Cedars-Sinai, hoping for a miracle, but there wasn't one. Doctors told her they were still trying to bring him back, but his body had taken too much. The fight was already slipping away. At 1:15 a.m., March 9th, 1997, Christopher Wallace was pronounced dead, just 24 years old. The King of New York gone forever. But the real truth of what those bullets did to him was hidden. For 15 years, Biggie's full autopsy was locked away, sealed by LAPD. No public details, no wound descriptions, just silence. They claimed it was to protect the case, but that silence kept the world in the dark. Then, in December 12th, the seal was broken. A 23-page document finally revealed what happened inside his body. Toxicology showed no trace of alcohol or drugs. He was completely sober, clear-headed, fully present. The bullets told a different story. 4 shots hit him, 3 of them survivable. The first bullet entered his left forearm, traveling down toward the wrist. The second tore into his back but missed every major organ and exited through his left shoulder. The third ripped through his left thigh, exiting through the inner thigh, just grazing his groin. 3 bullets, and he still could have lived. But the fourth was the end. That final round entered through his right hip, and from there, it was devastation. It blasted through his colon, sliced his liver, shredded his heart, then tore into the upper left lung before finally stopping near his shoulder. 1 bullet. And his entire body collapsed from the inside out. That broken body was flown home from Los Angeles to New York. The same body we now see in the newly surfaced footage, which raises the question, how do you prepare something that damaged for a viewing? The family wanted privacy. absolute privacy. So they sent Biggie's remains to the most exclusive funeral home in New York, Frank E. Campbell Funeral Chapel, Madison Avenue. Not just any mortuary. This is where icons are taken. John Lennon, Jacqueline Kennedy, Onassis, Judy Garland. Their reputation is built on one principle: no leaks, no mistakes, total secrecy. An embalmer named Gene Schultz later confirmed what we now see in that video. The casket had to be custom made, a massive triple-wide build to fit his size. He confirmed the outfit too, a double-breasted white suit, white top hat, exactly as the family asked. The wounds were covered, the damage disguised. They used every technique in the book to restore his face, to make him look at peace. Just long enough for one final goodbye no one was ever supposed to see. The private viewing took place on March 18, 1997. A moment in the world was never meant to witness until now. More than 350 mourners squeezed into that chapel wall to wall with legends. Queen Latifah, Flavor Flav, Busta Rhymes, Mary J. Blige, Lil Kim, Run DMC, even former NYC Mayor David Dinkins. This was supposed to be a private, polished goodbye, but people inside say it was anything but calm. The room was heavy with love, pain, jealousy, and tension. Faith Evans stood and began to sing Walk With Me, Lord, but she wasn't the only woman in that room who loved him. Charlie Baltimore, Biggie's other partner, was seated quietly in the back. She later told what happened next. As Faith sang, the grief hit Lil Kim like a wave. Biggie protege, his lover? She didn't just cry. According to Charlie, Kim dropped to the floor and rolled up and down the aisle, wailing in agony, a scene of heartbreak and chaos. Eyes were on her, guards were distracted, the room was no longer controlled. In that moment of confusion, did a camera slip into a hand? Is that when the forbidden footage was captured? Because what followed ended the private portion of the day. The last IV. The triple-wide casket was carried out and placed in a black hearse. Then came the journey from Manhattan's polished streets back home to Brooklyn. Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn showed up. Thousands lined the sidewalks. They blasted Biggie from windows, stood on cars, held signs, waved portraits like scripture. It wasn't quiet grief. It was a parade for a king. The crowd got so wild, police used pepper spray. Cars were swarmed, 9 people arrested, tears, music, riots, a farewell like no other. After the chaos came the official conclusion. The hearse continued to Fresh Pond Crematory in Queens. The records say Christopher Wallace was cremated and the ashes returned to his family. End of story. So why is this new footage blowing everything open? Because it shows a private viewing before cremation. It proves his body was preserved, not immediately burned. It proves there was more to that final day than the public ever knew. And if the body was real, what else has been hidden? The unsolved murder? Biggie's case is still open. One of America's most famous unsolved killings. But one LAPD detective claimed he uncovered the truth. Detective Russell Poole's investigation didn't point to street shooters, it pointed inside his own department. Poole believed fellow officer David Mack was tied to Suge Knight in death row. Mack was affiliated with the Bloods, wore the red colors, moved like their enforcer, and that shooter in the Impala, the one in the blue suit and bow tie. Poole named a suspect, Amir Mohammed, Mack's associate. A perfect match to the eyewitness description. His theory was explosive. Suge Knight used corrupt LAPD officers to assassinate Biggie. Poole took this to LAPD Chief Bernard Parks and set his support. Parks ordered him to drop the investigation. Case closed, at least officially. Poole resigned rather than be part of what he believed was a cover-up. Did he own former bodyguard? Gene Deal backs Poole's story. He insists this was no random drive-by, it was a setup, a staged hit. A car waiting for Biggie, not passing by. If police were involved, the truth is darker than anyone wanted to admit. The prophecy. But the eeriest piece of all this comes from Biggie himself. Life After Death. The album name. The album cover shot in a cemetery. January 24th, 1997, just weeks before he died, Biggie in a black suit, leaning on a cane beside a hearse. The plate even altered to fit the theme. He was posing beside his own symbolic death car for a project called Life After Death. He was killed March 9th. The album dropped just 16 days later, March 25th, 1997. And the very last track, You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You. His friend Lance Rivera said the title came in a dream. Right after Tupac died, meant his tribute, and said it became Biggie's final prophecy. The ashes were scattered. The killer never charged. The case left to rot in the dark. And now, a video surfaces proving there was a secret farewell we were never meant to witness. So one question remains. If the world saw his last public ride, who filmed his final private one?